Crappening. Welcome to Under the Foreskin, a show dedicated to happening to the SJU and Misfits Fantasy Football League. My name is Kyle. I'm the head of football operations for the Potomac Pretenders, the voice of SJU and Misfits Fantasy Football, and the commissioner of the SJU and Misfits Fantasy Football League. Co-commissioner, that is, along with my guest. He's not in the Under the Foreskin studios today. He's phoning it in. It is Alex Dunn, head of football operations for the Crapstone Prairie Dogs. Alex, how you doing today? Tough first round loss.
Yeah, Kyle, doing all right here. It's been kind of an emotional weekend for me. A lot of lows, almost a high, and then I wouldn't even watch the game on Monday night, and then as soon as I turned it on, I was 2 yards away from tie, and of course when I turned it on with 4 minutes left, 3rd and 4, they decided to run the ball. So
yeah, those yards didn't come.
Kind of a dagger to my stomach there, but you can't escape injury all year, and when guys go down, you get hurt. So I had a pretty good season, and I got to be happy with that.
All right.
I'll just be joining Roger and the teams that have been beat by an 8 seed in the first round, and just playing true to the curse.
Truth hurts. That's right. And let's get into that. We had 4 games this week. With the 8 teams that made the playoffs, obviously 1 played 8, 2 played 7, 3, 6, 4, 5. Your Crapstone Prairie Dogs were the number 1 seed. One of the most dominant regular seasons I've ever seen. Maybe not from a win-loss standpoint, but from, the amount of times you scored 125 points was just absolutely incredible. And you took on Buffalo, who made it in as the second wild card team. Their record actually fell that they were the 8th best team in the league as well, so it didn't matter too much about points scored this year. But they've been charging lately, the Buffalo Armadillos, led by Josh Gordon, Matt Prater, Danny Woodhead. They kind of ham and egged it and made a team that was good enough for the playoffs, and they came into Crapstone and they showed up. And unfortunately for your Prairie Dogs, they didn't show up. Headline reads, for the 3rd straight year, the chip-in-a-chair Buffalo Armadillos knock off the number 1 seed, 98-97. For the Buffalo Armadillos, Josh Gordon, 25, Matt Prater, 17, Danny Woodhead, 15 points this week. Only real negatives on the Dillos. Stephen Ridley, 3 points. He's been a little bit of a disappointment recently. And the New England defense with 2 points, thanks mostly to Josh Gordon. But really, in those 2 places, he didn't have a lot of other options. For your Prairie Dogs, Noshawn Moreno continues to be solid, 16 points. Marshawn Lynch, 13 points. Had an okay game against a good defense in San Francisco, but obviously not what you're used to with Marshawn Lynch putting up 3 touchdown games. Your negatives, and they were bad. AP, 1 point, sprained foot. It was bad. And Calvin Johnson, how many times has this guy put up 25 plus this year for you? He scored 4 points this week. That turned out to be the dagger in your side. You're down 59-98 going into Monday Night Football. Jack was already on the waiver wire looking for players for next week that he could put in place of Stephen Ridley. But little old Josh McCown was there for you. He put up 38 points. And I'll tell you a little story quick. I was out shopping for some Christmas stuff with the wife. And, she's looking around, touching everything that she sees, because that's what women do in clothing stores. And I'm watching my phone, and Josh McCown's having a game, throwing some nice passes. He ran that one in, which was nice. Bears were up pretty big. I kind of figured, wow, it's going to be closer than one might have expected, but it's still, he's going to need 39 points to tie it up. Well, with 12 minutes remaining in the game, and the SJ and Misfits account tweeted this, the score was 98-97. Josh McCown had 38 points, 14-24, 42-14 Bears. You had to figure all he needed was about, was it like 15 more yards maybe? I know he got some more yards, and then it ended up being 3 yards left passing and 2 left rushing, or something like that. Maybe.
I think at that point, he needed 16 more yards, and then at the end of the day, you got a 13-yard pass, needed 2 or something.
Yep, needed 2 more yards that would have tied it up. You have the tiebreakers in all sense of the word. Better record, better most points scored. I think you beat Jack during the regular season. I don't know exactly what the tiebreakers are, but you had them all. So a tie gets you a win. Unfortunately, those last 3 yards passing and 2 yards rushing, they never came, Alex.
They didn't?
They didn't, and you lost.
Thanks for reminding me, Kyle. I did.
So, pretty unbelievable out of the Buffalo Armadillos. Why don't you tell me a little bit of the roller coaster of emotions? I know from a fan watching the game and, how tight it was one of the most exhilarating Monday Night Football games I've ever watched. So, Alex, why don't you tell me about your emotions on the other side of the fence?
Well, I started watching the game. Jason Johannes, actually, the owner of the Baton Border Collies, and early on in the game, I see AP go down, go, shit, that's not good, and praying for the best. Still got a couple guys going, and about halftime, I look at my scores, and AP's got nothing, and we're going to have nothing for the rest of the game, and Calvin had a few points, and I'm like, well, he's a second-half player, he'll turn it around, and I don't know what else was going then, but headed back to my house after that, and got home, and my guys just started performing and starting to worry, especially with losing, 10 or so guaranteed points usually out of Adrian.
Right.
Turned on the afternoon game, and I was watching Denver, and I think I had both Denver. I could see Marino and Lynch play, and just begging for carries for Lynch, and he's kind of getting handcuffed lately by Matte Paul, especially on the goal line. So hoping he gets one. He gets me a touchdown, but I think that was in the second half. But in the first half, Prater had that 65 yards, and I shut the TV out for a while and couldn't watch. I thought that was kind of it at that point. It can't be. There's six points out of the kicker on one play. Just kind of hurt. So still kind of watched, hoping and praying, but didn't really have it. Deleted everything off my phone. The Yahoo app. Didn't watch the night game. Got rid of any other tools I had. Deleted everything out of my browsers. Pretty frustrated. Kind of spent the night getting over it that night, and then woke up the next day, went to work, shared my feelings with a few coworkers, kind of depressing. And then went home, and I actually checked the Bears game at halftime just to get a chance, just to see if I had a chance. And McAllen had 23 at that point, and I was like, holy shit, I might have a chance at this thing. And I kept kind of periodically looking at my phone. I couldn't watch the game, I wouldn't do that to myself. My phone started blowing up, like, are you guys watching this? This is unbelievable. And I think I called you even, like, I can't watch this. So, and then I turned on the game, and I told you earlier, I just watched him hand off the ball for 4 minutes, and they lost the game. So I went from, thinking I had it in the bag to feel nervous, to thinking I'd lost, to thinking I had a chance again. It was pretty tough.
What's this? Breaking news? Calvin Johnson awarded 3 yards, bringing his total from 49 to 52. That's an additional point for the Crapstone Prairie Dogs.
No.
They tied it up 98-98. That gives the Prairie Dogs the win. Holy shit.
Shit. You're kidding me, right?
I'm not kidding you. Breaking news.
I'm checking it right now on my phone. Oh my gosh. That's unbelievable. Holy cow.
Oh, Jack Lencheski and the Buffalo Armadillos are lighting their stadium on fire. Oh my God.
That's incredible. Holy shit.
Wow. 3 yards. Does it for you, Alex. Your thoughts?
I was kind of hoping with those snow games that something would turn up. I kind of given up after nothing came through Wednesday.
Yeah, we're sitting here on Thursday. This is live breaking news. Unbelievable.
This is pretty shocking. I don't know. I mean, I can't lie, Kyle. I'm pretty pumped that I win, but this is kind of a terrible way to lose. Jack's team really hung in there, and I thought really deserved a victory after my team didn't show up, and him doing it 3 years in a row. Man, I'm pumped, but I guess that's why it's fantasy. Man, still got to offer up my hand or tip my hat to Jack. It's been a great performance, but going on to the next round.
Wow, and with our reseeding format, that completely changes the next round playoff. So all my notes that I took are I'm just gonna have to freewheel it with Crapstone now in there. Let's break down the rest of the games from last week so we can talk about who's playing, and then we'll go through the Week 15 playoff matchups. So Chernobyl, they took on the Gnawbone Butte Pirates. Headline reads, Chernobyl runs into another 100-pointer, can't produce one himself. Butte Pirates 116, Chernobyl 93. Drew Brees with 28 points versus Carolina. That was a nice surprise for Zach. Keenan Allen, 2 touchdowns, 17 points. 5 other players in double figures. Pretty solid week from the Butte Pirates. Really only negatives. Victor Cruz with 4 points. For Chernobyl, Peyton Manning, another 30-burger. Unbelievable season, 31 points this week. Andre Johnson, 16 points. The Cincy D, though, let down this week, and they've been pretty solid for Vanis heading down the home stretch here. They scored 0. Tucker from... Sorry, my cat just jumped on my computer. Tucker from Baltimore scored 3 points. He's also been pretty strong down the home stretch, but the snow had a little effect on him. So Chernobyl out of the playoffs after a pretty impressive year, especially considering where we all thought he was going to land after draft day. And, you know, hats off to Mike and the way he managed his team this year. Great season. You know, really ran into some bad luck, run into some big weeks for other teams. But hats off. Nice 2013 campaign, Mr. Vanis. Got anything to say about that game, Al? You know, maybe just, I don't know.
I don't really have too much to say, I guess, because I didn't really pay attention to any of the other games at the time. But I thought Vanis would have kept this one a little closer. But he had a couple real low balls that hurt him. He had a great campaign this year. He really turned it around. He took a lot of shit from other people in the league, and I think he proved them all wrong. So hats off to him.
Absolutely. All right, next matchup. Baton Rouge Border Collies, they were at home versus the Flint Tropics. Headline reads, Collies playing like a hungry pack. Feast on the Tropics. 131-76 was the final. For Jason's team, Matt Forte, 24 points. And Marcel Reese, the late Sunday addition to the Border Collies, with Rashad Jennings being ruled out on Sunday morning, had a great game. 22 points out of Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Really no negatives for the Border Collies this week. No one under 7 points. 6 players in double digits. You know, the Border Collies have been playing well the last few weeks. Really consistent, solid point totals from them. And for the Tropics, you know, all season they sat on these backup running backs. It finally came through for them that they got the starters, and they didn't show up this week. They only scored 76 points. The good news was Jordan Cameron, 19 points. Bobby Rainey, 19 points. Unfortunately, Matthew Stafford, who's been a rock for the Tropics all year, only put up 6. Michael Floyd, 2. And Cameron and Rainey were the only people in double figures, which means Andre Brown had single digits. Ben Tate, single digits. Just not enough to get by a very solid and gelling Baton Rouge Border Collies. You know, I think the Border Collies are gonna be a tough out here going forward. I was expecting to play them this week, and obviously now with you winning versus Jack in the breaking news here just moments ago, Zach, the Butte Pirates, will now play the Baton Rouge Border Collies. Alex, anything to say to the Flint Tropics, as his 2013 campaign comes to an end?
Well, I gotta say I'm in a long tunnel right now, so they might lose me first. But I thought Dinger put up a good show this year, and his running backs got better at the end of the season, like you said, because due to injury. But his big dogs at the end of the year just kind of didn't perform. Des Bryant was big at the beginning of the year, and he kind of cooled off.
Absolutely.
It's tough for Flint, but I will say for the Collies, I was with the owner of the Collies when he scored that touchdown. I've never seen a better touchdown dance myself. Pretty good stuff there. But yeah, they're right now on all cylinders right now, really playing the part. So they're going to be a tough competitor for the Ute Pirates moving forward.
Absolutely. Last game of the week, my Potomac Pretenders took on the Sioux City Smugglers, who are no stranger to the playoffs. Unfortunately, my Pretenders are a stranger to the playoffs. This is their first playoff performance in SJU and Misfits league history since it's been over an 18 league. My Pretenders headline reads, in the biggest game of the season, possibly of the franchise, Pretenders show their best stuff. 147 this week for my Pretenders. I waxed the Sioux City Smugglers. They scored 80 points. For my Pretenders, LaShawn McCoy, 35 points and 8 inches of snow. Jamal Charles, 28 points and about an inch of snow. KCD, 29 points and that same inch of snow. Having nearly 30 burgers is a good thing for my Potomac Pretenders. My negatives this week, Torrey. Yes. Torrey Smith, 3 points for my Pretenders this week. My only real letdown of the week. And Heath Miller with 5 points, which actually I'm not that upset with. For the Smugglers, 5 players in double figures. Unfortunately, the injury bug caught up with the Smugglers. After taking Doug Martin off his hands and taking that shoulder injury in the ass, the Pretenders got the better end of the injury deal. Reggie Bush got hurt in warm-ups. He apparently slipped and fell. What an idiot. Hurt his calf. Scored 0 points because he didn't play in the game. Rob Gronkowski scored 3 points this week with a pretty horrific knee injury. So get well soon, Gronk. But, I got to be honest. I had a great week. It wouldn't have really mattered what those two did. There's a good chance the Smugglers would have got nowhere near 147. But I do hate to win on, a little bit of a shitty luck situation like Sioux City had. Alex, any thoughts for Roger as it was his last game of the 2013 season?
I suppose I have a few thoughts. I thought, actually, I'll start off right at the bat. It's hard to get past the injury bug like that. And, I thought I had it bad with just the one player going down. And I battled with a couple other players earlier this season, but to lose Gronk and then Bush 10 minutes before the game started, he really didn't have time to make a move. That's brutal.
That is brutal.
But as you said, Pretenders came to play that day and really put up some high numbers, so it would have been really hard for Roger to catch up anyways. Irregardless, Rogers, unfortunately, it's his third year in the playoffs in a row going down in the first round, so that's always tough as well, and hopefully you can get past that first round one of these years. But puts together a good team every year, and there's always a competitor, so still looking for that prize, though, at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. Well, these are going to be a little different now because of the breaking news. But the first game of the week, your number 1 seeded Crapstone Prairie Dogs take on my 4-seeded Potomac Pretenders. So what I did on my notes, and I did this for Jack's team, not yours, so I'm just going to kind of wing it. I basically laid out, the starting positions for each team, and I put a little check mark beside who I think has the bigger advantage. So at quarterback this week, I'm not really sure who's going to be in for your Crapstone Prairie Dogs. Aaron Rodgers most likely out, they're saying. Josh McCown just today was named the backup as Jay Cutler is apparently healthy enough to start. Which, if my memory serves me, Carson Palmer's riding your pine right now. Is he going to get the start? If you feel like sharing this information with me, since I am playing with you.
Well, I haven't really had time to think about it, to be honest.
That's true.
I'm really not sure. I had originally planned for Rodgers to be healthy by this point when he went down with a 3-week injury. So they said, but you can't believe any of that shit. Again. So, we're not really sure what's going to happen there. McCowan, my savior last week.
Yeah.
Definitely. But losing him this week kind of sucked after that performance. He was really playing out, really really good to go. So I'm not sure what's going to happen there, but advantage to you.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Nick Foles playing the Minnesota Vikings would leave the advantage to me. The RB1 position, Marshawn Lynch at New York Giants versus Jamal Charles at Oakland. I think this is one of the better matchups for the year for Jamal Charles. Lynch is a nice player. The Giants have been playing a little better defense. I gave the check mark to Jamal Charles, but I think it's close, obviously. Your thoughts?
Well, for Lynch, it all depends on the game plan, usually. Sometimes they don't like to run the ball. He doesn't get many carries. Other times, it's all about him, and he'll get 3 touchdowns. So, hoping for that game. The Giants in the past have had a good run. I don't know how they're doing this year. Really haven't looked at them. So, hoping that he can be the better back this week, because he is now my number 1 back. AP being down.
Yeah. Running back 2, Noshawn Moreno is now your number 2 running back. With if AP doesn't play, which it looks like he's not going to. He takes on San Diego tonight. And LaShawn McCoy is obviously at Minnesota, same as Nick Foles. I put a check mark by LaShawn McCoy. I think Moreno, this Monte Ball has obviously cut into his time a little bit. I think they're kind of saving him up for the playoffs, because he's really not that old. I think everyone who thinks he's this old-ass player is completely mistaken. He's really not that old. Had some injury issues, which might be the reason they're resting him a little bit. Maybe it's just the emergence of Monte Ball and that he is a talented player and he's not fumbling anymore. I put the check mark by LaShawn McCoy. Jamal Charles, LaShawn McCoy are, if you look at rankings, if you care about that, are pretty much 1-2 in everybody's ranking this week. Great players, good matchups, advantage pretenders.
Yep, advantage pretenders. It's funny that this is probably the first week that I don't have the running back advantage all year, so
yeah,
that was the foundation of my team. So
that's true.
Happens there. I will correct you. Monte Ball continues to fumble the ball, so not really sure why they continue to feed it to him, because Peyton hates that.
Did he fumble last week?
Might not have, but he did the week before.
Okay,
so.
All right.
But anyways, hoping for a good week out of Moreno. He has been fading off. I know there's a bit of a shoulder injury, so we'll see what happens there. If he could put up a big number for me today, I would be quite thrilled, but we'll see what happens.
All right. If there is a position you do have a large advantage at, it would be the WR1 position. Calvin Johnson is at home on Monday Night Football taking on the Baltimore Ravens, and in that same game, my number 1 wide receiver, Torrey Smith, is playing those Lions in Detroit. Hey, actually, I like Torrey Smith in this game, but I liked him last week in that snowy Minnesota game. So it's hard to say with Torrey. He gets a lot of looks. Flacco airs the ball to him. Detroit's weak deep, but it's Calvin Johnson. The guy has single-handedly won you several games, or I shouldn't say won you games. He single-handedly has made you the biggest blowout of the week several times. So I'm giving you the check mark there. I don't even need your analysis on this one, Alex. I think it's pretty clear. Wide receiver 2, Pierre Garçon at Atlanta for your Crapstone Prairie Dogs. And Riley Cooper at Minnesota for my Potomac Pretenders. Garçon with Robert Griffin III being out, it's hard to see that as a positive or negative. Who knows what really is going on in Washington. I called this one a push because the matchup is good against Minnesota, and you got to figure Deshaun Jackson's going to draw Xavier Rhodes, who shut down Torrey Smith, who shut down Brandon Marshall, and hopefully Riley Cooper will have a little Alshon Jeffrey-esque game this Sunday. But at the same time, it's a white receiver. You got Garçon. I think it's pretty much a push. Your thoughts?
I don't know if I'll even play Garçon, to be honest. But I think with RG3, I definitely would consider benching him. This Cousins thing does make it a little more interesting, but it's been future the last couple of weeks, especially after trading for him. Been kind of a stinger for me. So, I would agree.
Nice. I think it's a push. I think that's fair. It might be a deciding factor if one of those two has a huge game. At the tight end position, we'll zip through this kick. Kobe Fleener plays Houston for your Crapstone Prairie Dogs, and for my Pretenders, Charles Clay, who's on a little bit of a hot streak. He's at New England, who in the last 5 weeks has been the second worst defense against tight ends. I don't know what to make of that. First, Fleener versus Houston, 64 yards earlier this season. He's obviously, that was with Reggie Wayne in the lineup, so you got to figure he's going to get more looks. He's been a little inconsistent, but he has been piling up some yards. I do have him in another league that is much less important than this one. So I put this also as a push. I maybe could see myself leaning Charles Clay if I had to decide between the two. Your thoughts real quick, Al?
Yeah, I agree. Fleener's been really inconsistent. If I can get a touch or 80 yards out of him, one or the other, I'd be real happy. So,
yep. I'm kind of right there with Clay. At the kicker position, obviously no need to break this down. Blair Walsh, Adam Vinatieri. Both players are playing inside. I'm a Blair Walsh fan, so I gave you the check mark on that one. For defenses, pretty interesting defensive matchups this week. Both juicy, to say the least. San Francisco travels across the country to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And my Kansas City Chiefs, they take on Oakland. Obviously, they've won me a lot of games this year. Helped propel me to that 4th position. They're at Oakland, which Oakland, between Matt McGloin and Terrell Pryor, hard to say who's going to fuck up more. I gave the check mark to you. I think San Francisco is going to dominate Tampa Bay, and I think Oakland has enough weapons to generate some kind of late game junk scoring. So I gave the check mark to you. I think it's close though. Your thoughts?
Well, if Kansas City plays like Kansas City, then I don't even think it's close. They've been a dominant defense, and some could argue that might be the biggest waiver of the year.
Yeah.
In terms of their performance this year. I think they got to be the number 1 defense by a long shot.
Yeah, points scored they are. Yep.
Seattle in other categories.
Right. And at the flex position, and I left this for last because I think it's the most interesting. A couple players to break down here. For your Crapstone Prairie Dogs, Toby Gerhart might be in there at flex if he can play with his bad hammy. AP might be in there. Obviously a long shot on that. Benny, is it Chris Ogbayana or Benny Ogbayana? What's his name?
Chris Ogbanoya.
Ogbanoya, whatever. OBG Naya. I mean, he's got a juicy matchup this week against the Patriots, who struggle against the run. I know you've put him in there before and he's let you down. I know one time for sure. Not sure if there's any other instances. But you got 3 running backs there. You got DeAndre Hopkins kind of sitting on the pine there. I know you wouldn't feel great about starting him, but last gasp effort against a bad Indy defense, it's an option. I'm not really sure who's out there on the waiver wire because obviously you might be looking there now that you're in the playoffs. I put a check mark by you. I feel like either Toby or AP is going to play, and if Toby plays or AP, I think you have an advantage there. For me, I have Joik Bell, who is contingent upon Reggie Bush playing. Unfortunately, that game's Monday night, so if I wait on Joik, I got to start him Monday night, regardless of what Reggie does. I picked up James Starks this week, knowing that I was going to be in the playoffs with Marshawn Lynch, Eddie Lacy nursing an ankle. James Starks might get the start against Dallas. Obviously, Matt Forte, nice game against Dallas last week. So I would actually be okay if Eddie Lacy was out and I could start James Starks. I feel good about that. If I get news that Bush and Lacy are going to play, I'll probably start Michael Crabtree or Rod Streeter. Both have okay matchups. Hard to say if Crabtree draws Revis. And Streeter, you're just hoping for that junk time scoring in Kansas City. So I gave you the check mark. I feel whether you have to go Toby or Ogbanaya, I feel like there's a little more solid matchup play there and a little more guaranteed points. Obviously not going to feel good about starting a backup running back if I have to start Joik or Starks and their lead backs are playing. The final verdict for me, Alex, obviously didn't get to put a lot of thought in this because I thought I was playing the Baton Rouge Border Collies. But looking at your matchups, looking at the holes after last week's battle, I think my Pretenders have a lot of great matchups. I think they're firing all cylinders. I like my Pretenders this week. Congrats on making the second round, but I don't think a championship game will be in your future 2 years in a row. So, Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, I probably have to agree with you there. Team's really beat up. I've lost Rogers, Stroud, Finley, and now probably AP and his backup. So, not really sure how to get past that. But
and I think you should mention you lost McCown.
All right, that's true. That's true. So it's been an injury plague season. I've been so able to continue with the foundation that I have. So, but I like what you put together. You got two solid running backs, good QB options. Receivers that can take off for sure, and Kansas City is deep. So I was texting another member of this league this morning, and I said for the first time I feel like the underdog in the game. So I really think you have the advantage. I'm just hoping for a maybe 30 burger or two. Who knows?
Yep.
I think they don't know, but I think you got the potential to play those up too. So I need some things to go my way this week. So
just like
advantage protect.
Yeah, just like Jack needed a few things to go his way last week, and then one thing didn't go his way, and that was that. Gnawbone Butte Pirates take on the Baton Rouge Border Collies, 2-seed Butte Pirates. What's that?
One more comment on that game.
Okay.
If you're gonna beat me, I just prefer that you kick my ass, because I don't think it'd take another week like last.
Just over early.
Yeah. But let me just shut off the TV, get rid of the electronics, just go to bed.
All right.
So,
all right.
Actually, I think we both got Monday night matchups, so it's probably coming down to Monday night.
Yep, I may have Joik Bell and I may have Torrey Smith, and you will for sure have. Well, I will for sure have Torrey Smith. You will for sure have Kelvin Johnson, I'm assuming. So the 2-seed, the Gnawbone Butte Pirates, they are hosting the Baton Rouge Border Collies this week. Quarterback matchup this week, and name-wise, obviously the big advantage for Gnawbone, they're playing St. Louis. Drew Brees, is playing St. Louis, in St. Louis. And for the Border Collies, Matty Ice playing that just absolute quitting Washington Redskins team. Obviously, you got to put the check mark next to Drew Brees in a juicy matchup, but I think it's closer than one may like, because I think Matty Ice will have a nice game against Washington, who really can't stop anyone doing anything. So I'm putting the check mark by Drew Brees. Are you doing the same? You got it. Yeah.
Time and time again, but it's a good matchup for Ryan. I agree with you.
Absolutely. Wide receiver number 1, Vinny Jackson. He is playing the San Francisco 49ers in Tampa Bay. And for the Border Collies, Demarius Thomas plays tonight against San Diego. Now rewind to Week 10. Demarius did have 3 touchdowns and over 100 yards versus these same Chargers. Obviously, Jason and the Collies looking for a repeat performance. I put a check mark by Demarius. You got to feel better Peyton Manning throwing the ball versus Mike Glennon. I'm guessing you feel the same way?
Yeah, I'd agree. And Manning's going for the record tonight.
Yeah.
5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns.
Which is doable for him. So.
Absolutely. It's happened several times this year. Wide receiver number 2, Keenan Allen for the Gnawbone Butte Pirates playing tonight at Denver. And Roddy White at home versus Washington. Obviously, that Matty Ice, Roddy White combo could be deadly. Roddy hasn't gotten a lot in the end zone since he's been back to being a little healthy, but he's gotten a lot of targets and a lot of yards. Maybe this is the week he has a little bit of a breakout game against a terrible defense. But Keenan, he's been rock solid. Jack initially picked him up on the wire, which was a great snag. He then was dealt to the Gnawbone Butte Pirates late in the season. I put this one as a push. But I could be, persuaded either way, Roddy or Keenan. But I'm calling it a push. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, you like the matchup for Roddy, but at the same time, Keenan's been really good all year, and they could be in catch-up mode or in shootout mode.
Absolutely. Running back number 1, Matt Forte. For the Baton Rouge Border Collies, I gave him the advantage. He's playing at Cleveland. Shane Vereen last week had 150 yards receiving and a touchdown. Matt Forte catches a lot of balls out of the backfield. Cleveland's pretty solid front 4 run D, but I think they're susceptible to the pass-catching running back. Frank Gore at Tampa Bay, real tough matchup this week. Frank Gore has been quietly sliding back to mediocrity, I guess you would say, as he was on fire earlier in the year and even towards the middle of the year. These last couple weeks, he's really been struggling. I gave the advantage to Matty Forte.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
Forte's been good all year, and he's good out of the backfield, and he's definitely a top 5 back.
Absolutely. For running back number 2, Rashad Jennings versus KC. That's who's in there right now, at least. And DeMarco Murray versus Green Bay. DeMarco with a good matchup against Green Bay. And DeMarco's been playing well, catching the ball, running the ball, doing everything well. I think for Jonas and the Baton Rouge Border Collies having Rashad Jennings, wouldn't you almost rather have Rashad out and Marcel Reese be back in there? I mean, Reese catches the ball so well. He looked great last week. You got to figure they're going to be chasing points in that game. And if Marcel Reese was the only option, you'd have to like him. I almost wish Rashad wouldn't play for the sake of the Baton Rouge Border Collies, but it looks like he's going to, which puts Baton Rouge in a tough spot. I like DeMarco better, so I gave the check mark to the Butte Pirates. Alex.
I agree. DeMarco's been hot lately, and he's got a good matchup. So.
Yep.
Check next to Dallas.
Yep. To the Butte Pirates. Yep. Tight end, Jimmy Graham for the Baton Rouge Border Collies. I gave him the check mark. Plays St. Louis. One kind of interesting little nugget here. You know, a lot of Drew Brees' touchdowns go to Mr. Jimmy Graham. Does Jimmy have a big game and help cancel out Drew Brees' big game? I think that's a real possibility. For the Butte Pirates, they have no schlub of a tight end themselves. They have Vernon Davis, who's on a fucking heater lately. He plays Tampa Bay. You gotta like his chances at scoring some points in that game. I gave a check mark to Jimmy Graham, but again, much like the quarterback situation, I think it's closer than you might think.
Well, Jimmy Graham, I mean, that's all you gotta say.
Right. It's Jimmy Graham, number 1 tight end in the league by a long shot. Kicker, no need to go over this. Robbie Gould at Cleveland. I guess that is going to be an outside game in the weather. Gutskowski plays at Miami. You got to figure it'll be at least relatively nice. Gutskowski's a scud. I pushed it. I put it as a push, but I mean it's the kicker who really cares. Let's move on to the defense. Another nice defensive matchup game, much like our game, Alex. For the Butte Pirates, Carolina Panthers are at home against the New York Jets. We've seen a lot of teams outside of the Raiders last week put up some big defensive numbers on the Jets. But no slouch in Baton Rouge either. The Seattle Seahawks, they traveled to New York to take on the Giants. Eli Manning, Mr. Turnover this year, throwing a lot of picks. You got to like your chances if he's throwing the ball in that game, which you have to figure he will be. I gave the check mark to the Butte Pirates. But again, it's 1A and 1B in that game.
Yeah, both are good defenses.
Yeah,
you can go either way on this one. So.
Absolutely. Flex position. Zach has some depth. He's got Victor Cruz on the bench right now because they are playing those Seahawks, and he has Freddie Jackson at Jacksonville this week. Jacksonville's actually been better as of late against the run, but Freddie's been getting in the end zone pretty consistently. And for the Border Collies, maybe the only weaker spot in their lineup. Brian Hartline travels, actually is at home against New England. You got to figure Aqib Talib is going to be on Mike Wallace. Does that leave Hartline open against some schlub of a corner? But Hartline's been solid. He finally got in the end zone last week. He's usually good for 5 or 6 points at least, with the possibility of scoring 12 to 14. I gave the advantage, obviously, to the Butte Pirates. But I think it'll also be a close matchup, as I don't think Freddie Jackson will have a monster game. Alex, your thoughts?
Well, it's late in the season. Freddie's old, so is that a factor, or are we overthinking it too much? I don't know. But if that's the case, if he is good to go, then you like Freddie in this one. Okay.
So, the final verdict. I got 1 check mark, 2, 3, 4 check marks by the Gnawbone Butte Pirates, and I got 3 check marks by the Baton Rouge Border Collies, 2 pushes. Even with my check marks weighing out the way they do, I'm going Border Collies in this one. I think this is going to be a hell of a matchup. Really excited to follow it closely as I follow our game closely as well. I'm going Border Collies.
Oh man, I got a pick now. I don't know what my mental check marks say. I didn't keep track, but
that's fine.
I can go I could go either. Well, I assumed as much. I could go either way on this one. Definitely with Drew Brees throwing to Jimmy, that mitigates Jimmy, but it also mitigates Drew, as you said too. So, and then on the other side is Brian and Roddy is pretty big piece for Jason if they do well. So,
Absolutely.
you know, my heart says Baton Rouge, but I think Zach might have the advantage here, so I'm gonna go Nabo.
Oh, Nabo. It's a little bit of a split decision between us two on that one. Well, Alex, unexpectedly, welcome to the second round. I look forward to our matchup this week. You waxed the shit out of me earlier in the season as the Pretenders did not show up to play. But, you know, these are our full teams this week, and well, I shouldn't say... This is my full team this week, and it is not your full team because of injuries, which is unfortunate, but in my quest to become quest to become fantasy relevant, I couldn't ask for much more. So I will head into crap zone. What's that?
Guaranteed relevance would win over me.
You're right.
I'm the only one that can do it right now.
Well, so for relevance, is it top 4?
Top 3.
Top 3. Good.
Let me see. So you only got a 25% chance that you're not in the top 3.
Right, exactly.
Think about it that way.
Which is a great feeling after being in the basement of the league the last 2 years. It's nice to have a little bit of a turnaround. Well,
It can happen.
it can happen. It absolutely can happen. With that, well, thank you for joining me, Alex. As always, follow us on Twitter at SJU Misfits and on YouTube, youtube.com/SJU Misfits. Until next week, good luck on the gridiron.